Come on in, pull up a chair and take a load off, because today I'm going to review and page through the Blade Runner, the role-playing game core rules from Free League Publishing. Should you be clamoring to get your hands on this rulebook almost as much as you would Electric Sheep? Or is this the equivalent to a malfunctioning replicant in need of retirement? Well, you're going to find out right after this. Howdy, 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 gang, and happy holidays. Welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang channel. I mentioned in the open, today I am going to review and page through Blade Runner, the role-playing game, core rules from Free League Publishing. It's written by Tomas Harenstam and Joe LaFavi, with artwork and graphic design provided by Martin Grip, Gustav Ekelund, and Christian Granith. The 234-page hardcover went on sale yesterday and does carry an MSRP of $49.99, or you can grab just the PDF alone over at DriveThruRPG for $24.99. That said, let's swing on over to the other camera, because here I've got the core rules for Blade Runner, the role-playing game. A few things to mention before we jump on in. First of all, the fine folks over at Free League Publishing were kind enough to provide me with this review copy, but neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share my review with you. These days, it's important you know that I'm also going to stay picture-in-picture up here, as I normally do. So as we take a peek through the book, I am going to be cutting off a little bit of the upper left portion of it. We're not going to take a peek at each and every page, but I do want to give you a good feel for what's in the core rules, as well as share my thoughts about them as well. Do want to mention, some folks had emailed asking what was going on with the Blade Runner reviews, because it had been a while since I had shared a live first look at both the starter set and the core rule book. And I have to point out, there was an embargo up until yesterday on any sort of reviews. So yesterday I did share my review of the starter set. So if you haven't checked that out yet, by all means, take a peek. If you have seen that, do keep in mind there are a lot of sections of the starter set rule book that are also in the core rules. Really no difference there. So you're going to hear me talk about the mechanics and that again. But I am going to try to focus a bit on what the difference is, what's included in this core rulebook that you didn't see in the starter set, as well as what's in the starter set that's not going to be in this core rulebook. Jump on in. First thing I do want to mention, production quality throughout, top notch. I'll be honest, I was a little concerned. I don't know, maybe concerned isn't a great word, but I wasn't sold on Martin Grip providing the artwork for the Blade Runner line, as in all of the artwork, because he's got kind of an abstract style. Although when they announced the game, they did share some artwork from Martin Grip, which was fantastic. I got to be honest, I was completely wrong, because the artwork throughout, top notch, really, really well done, and really does help bring this setting to life. In the role-playing game, the players are going to take on the roles of Blade Runners. That is the only character option available to them, although there are different archetypes for the Blade Runners. So they are going to have their own specialty, as far as, there's the Doxy, there's the Skimmer, there's the Enforcer, there's a few different archetypes. So everybody's not playing the same exact sort of character. There are character creation rules in this core rulebook, which of course are not included in the starter set. The starter set includes 4 pre-generated characters. One aspect of Blade Runner, the role-playing game, that I really like is this is primed for one game master, or in this case, they're called the game runner, and a single player, or maybe 2 players. In fact, it's recommended that you don't have more than 4 player characters, I should say, in a game of Blade Runner. So important to point that out. So if you are looking for a 1-on-1 or a 2-on-1 role-playing game experience, take a peek. Blade Runners should be right up your alley. First 20 pages or so, we're getting pretty much the same background material about the setting, the world of Blade Runner in the year 2037 as we do in the starter set. One of my quibbles with the starter set was I didn't feel that there was enough background material. We just got little nuggets. I would have liked to have had a little more to work with as far as the year 2037, because it's after the events of Blade Runner, because that's 2019, but it's also prior to the events of Blade Runner 2049. So I'm not sure where this setting is coming from. So I don't know if there's like outside references that are being utilized, like the 2 Blade Runner comic series from Titan Comics that are out of England, although obviously they're available here, or someplace else. Because I do know that we've got a Blade Runner television series in the works, supposedly. I think it's with Amazon. In fact, Ridley Scott's on board as a director. They're talking about he's going to direct probably just the first episode. He's not going to be the showrunner. So I don't know if that's where some of this is coming from either. There are plenty of callbacks to both movies, so you'll be very pleased to see that as well. Character creation's pretty easy. We've got some cool kind of random tables for the player characters. You have the opportunity to either be a human or a replicant. So you can be an N9 replicant, because at this point in time, replicants have been approved to be on the planet Earth once again. It's fairly recent that decision has come down, because prior to that, all replicants were banned. So we do have the different archetypes: the analyst, the city speaker, the doxy, the enforcer, the fixer, the inspector, the skimmer. So as I mentioned, you've got an opportunity to have a unique Blade Runner in the game. Adventures are going to be cases that the Blade Runners are looking to solve. At least from my understanding, that's what we're going to see. The starter set includes a case. Pretty good. I had major quibbles with the conclusion of the adventure, but the adventure, all in all, felt like Blade Runner. It really did. So mechanically, Blade Runner, the role-playing game, utilizes a modified version of the Year One engine, which powers a majority of the Free League Publishing role-playing games. Now, normally, in the Year One engine, you have a pool of 6-sided dice. You roll so many dice, and you're looking to roll a 6. And that's a success. Here's a little bit different. So you don't really have a dice pool. You've got a couple of dice normally that you're going to be rolling. Sometimes you'll have advantage, which will give you a die. Sometimes you have disadvantage, which takes a die away. But we've got different sized dice. So we have our attributes as well as our skills. And the skills and attributes are rated A through D. So an A gets you to roll a 12-sider, a B, a 10-sider. So A is extraordinary. It's almost superhuman. B is exceptional. C, which is an 8-sided die, is average. And then D is feeble, guess we'll say. In fact, as far as attributes, that is the official term. A D is feeble. So what you'll do is, most of the time, you're going to be rolling a skill and its associated attribute. And your skill could be higher than the attribute it's based on. So as an example, if I'm using firearms, let's say I'm shooting at somebody, it's just a standard roll. It's not an opposed roll. So let's say I've got a C in agility and I've got a B in firearms. So that would mean I would get to roll a 10-sider and an 8-sider. And these are the dice that came in the starter set. So you get 2 of each size. So 2 12s, 2 10s, 2 8s, 2 6s. And we do have little icons on them. So 1s are bad if you push a roll. Normally, if you fail and you roll a 1, it's just a failure. We also have rolls of 6 or higher show a success, which that icon is a little I, whereas our failure, our 1 is actually an origami unicorn. So nice callback to Blade Runner. So an example, 6 or higher on this is going to be a success. On a 10, it's 2 successes. So on a 12-sided die, 10, 11, 12 are 2 successes. Let's say I'm shooting at somebody, so I'm looking for a 6 or higher. Aha, so I would get a success on a 7. I get a 1. The 1 really doesn't matter if I don't push the roll. Now, I can't push all rolls. There are some things you can't push. But if I wanted to, I could push the roll looking for more successes. Well, in this case, 8-sided die is only going to get me 1 success anyway. So I'm not going to push it. Plus, I've got a 1. So if I say I had a 12-sided die and I rolled a 6. All right. Let's say I rolled a 9. But I really wanted 2 successes. I could push this die. Now, because I rolled a 1 here, I can't re-roll that die. It's locked. So I can't push this die. If it was something else, I could choose either one of the dice to push. But if I rolled this and I failed, then it's a worse failure. So if I'm a human character and it's something physical, I would actually take damage. If it's something mental, I would take stress. And if I were a replicant character, I would take stress for either. And I'll talk about what those do as well. So if you have advantage, go back to what I had before with these 2 dice. If I get advantage, then I get an additional die of the smaller size. So if I had advantage with that firearms roll, I would get an additional 8-sider. If I had disadvantage, I lose the smaller die. So I'd only get to roll 1 die. Now we also have opposed rolls, which you're essentially rolling for your character, and then the game runner's rolling for the NPC, or if it's against another player, they're rolling their dice. Whoever has the most successes is the victor. Close combat works like that as well, that you've got the attacker and defender, and funny enough, whoever has the highest roll, has the most successes, actually becomes the attacker and does damage. So you could be the attacker and be the one who ends up taking damage. Combat, you've got some combat options. This is certainly not as crunchy as the modified Year Zero engine that we find in Twilight 2000. Doesn't necessarily need to be as crunchy. Core mechanic itself, as a player, very, very easy to wrap your head around. No real issues whatsoever. Is the game runner a bit trickier? And although Free League Publishing has pointed out that Blade Runner, the role-playing game, especially the starter set, is a perfect introduction to the hobby, I don't think, as a game master, I would recommend this being the first game you pick up. Especially because this is an investigative game. Essentially, your Blade Runners are cops looking to solve cases that involve replicants. So there's a lot going on, and there's normally a time restraint. So the players are racing the clock. Some of those things are a little difficult for new game masters to juggle. Combat itself, very lethal. Love that fact. Your players can't approach combat in Blade Runner as they would in many other role-playing games because it's very, very easy to be killed. There are critical hits. weapons have critical hit dice, and there are critical hits that are instant kills. And depending on what's rolled, anywhere from 1 to 12, some of the charts have multiple instant kills. And an instant kill, there is no save against that. Your character is taking a dirt nap, period. Another aspect of the game I think is very interesting are the chase mechanics. So the chase mechanics, it's almost like a mini game within the game. So the starter set actually has decks for the pursuant and the prey, I guess I'll say. And you get different actions that you get to take. And it's very, very interesting. And then there's also some decks of obstacles that the game runner can throw out. So pretty cool, pretty fun. Some of the most entertaining chase rules I've seen in any role-playing game. So definitely think that's something pretty unique. And of course, it's something that you would expect in a Blade Runner game. So one aspect of this core rulebook that I really, really like is we get loads more information about the setting, about the world in 2037, Los Angeles, landmarks, people. We get a load of sample NPCs for the game runner to utilize, various different locations. So this section of the book really, really brings this world to life. Once again, I'd love to know where this is coming from. If this is Free League Publishing just creating it themselves, or if there's some other resources available, third-party resources that I can utilize to really bring the world of my Blade Runner games to life. There's also discussion about Blade Runner stories, because one of the key concepts of a Blade Runner story is facing moral dilemmas, as well as secondary citizens, right? Second-class citizens, and the little people. The people who are still left on Earth are not happy about it because, you know, the movers, the shakers, the rich, they've all moved off world. And the people who still live on Earth are kind of trapped there. They're stuck. They would love to get off world. And many of them sign away their lives into slavery to get off world. One thing I didn't see much of is kind of the focus. And I talked a little more about this during my review of the starter set, but the world of Blade Runner is actually a pretty misogynistic world. If you look at it, if you really look at the world itself, the characters and things like that, women and replicants and people of foreign descent aren't second-class citizens. They're like third-class citizens. And of course, as in the movie, it is pointed out in both the starter set and the core rules, you're either cop or you're little people. Come on, Decker. I need some of that old Blade Runner magic. Then we have a section that much of this is also in the starter set, just the various different pieces of gear. There's some other concepts that I really do like about this system as well. And one of them is you're not tracking like every last piece of equipment or bullet, things like that. You're not tracking every single chin yen in your Blade Runner's account. There are what's known as promotion points and humanity points. And players earn promotion points by doing a good job as a Blade Runner. So they earn promotion points. And those promotion points can be spent to utilize additional assets. They can actually get cash for them, shin yen for them. They can lose promotion points by not doing a good job or being reported for different things. I talked about this a little bit when I discussed the adventure Electric Dreams in the starter set. So the players can't approach Blade Runner like they would other role-playing games. They can't walk around trying to threaten everybody, right? Or twisting everybody's arm or smacking them around, because they are law enforcement officers. They're expected to do their job. Now, that doesn't mean they can't bend the rules. So we also have a section about running the game. Goes into a bit of detail as well. So I do want to point out we had the humanity points, which players earn humanity points by doing things that actually benefit humanity, right? By being decent human beings. And the funny thing is, sometimes the promotion points and humanity points conflict. So you can earn humanity points by doing something, say, like letting a replicant go, which, of course, will cost you promotion points if it was found out, and kind of vice versa. So you also spend the promotion points to earn specialties, specializations, and you spend humanity points to raise your skills. So pretty cool. We also have some info about downtime, because your Blade Runners need to decompress every so often. They can't always be on the clock. Then we have some various different random tables for creating cases on the fly, which I got to be honest, I'm never a fan of, because randomly generated adventures provide random entertainment. You know, it's hit or miss. Now, one thing I'm very, very disappointed to see is the lack of an introductory adventure in this book. Mainly because it would help the game runners to understand how to construct a case, because in the starter set, it walks you through the whole process. That information's in here as well. But the adventure is not presented like you would see some other role-playing games present their adventures. I do want to also point out this is a scene-based role-playing game. So you're not going to be role-playing, you know, minor details or a lot of downtime or things like that. We wrap up with an index, and that is the core rules for Blade Runner, the role-playing game. So let's swing on over to the other camera so I can share some final thoughts as well as my review score. I think folks out there who have been eagerly anticipating the Blade Runner role-playing game should be pretty pleased. They really should. I gotta say, though, I like the starter set better than the core rulebook. One of the big reasons is because there's no adventure in this. And I ding all core rulebooks if they do not have an introductory adventure in them. And especially with this case, because this is a different sort of role-playing experience. For one, you're looking to have kind of Blade Runner stories, right? You got to come up with these moral dilemmas. Not easy to come up with on the fly. And I'm sorry, random tables are just not going to provide the kind of gaming experience folks who are looking to play in the world of Blade Runner are going to be excited about. It also kind of makes me feel as if Free League Publishing is almost pushing you to purchase both the core rulebook and the starter set. And there's a lot of cool stuff in the starter set. I really do like the starter set quite a bit. Got some quibbles. That's why I gave it an 8.5 out of 10. But still, that's a very high recommendation for the starter set. There's a lot of content in here that is in the starter set. What you find in here is far more background setting information, character creation rules, some additional options here and there, some additional information about certain aspects of the game that are touched upon in the starter set, but not fleshed out as much as the core rulebook. So I do recommend the core rulebook. I'm just disappointed in it, mainly because it doesn't have an adventure. And I think that's a bummer. And I think if someone's just picking up this core rulebook as a game master, they're not going to have a really solid grasp of how to put an adventure together. And that is unfortunate. But on a scale of 0 to 10, I give the Blade Runner, the role-playing game, core rules, a 7.5 out of 10. Certainly do recommend it. I recommend the starter set a little bit more. Another reason why I sort of recommend the starter set a little bit more, not only because of all the cool handouts and clues that the players are going to get to really build the immersion into the case that they're looking to solve, but also if Blade Runner takes a page from the Alien the Role-Playing Game releases from Free League Publishing, the adventures are going to be box sets. Now, I'm not in the know on this. I'm just basing it on what we have seen in the past. Those box sets, those boxed adventures never require the core rulebook for you to run. You only need the starter set for Alien the Role-Playing Game. And I kind of get the feeling that that's going to be the case here as well. Can't say for sure, but that is my gut reaction. Once again, don't take a 7.5 out of 10 to be overly critical. I really do like this system. I really do think people are going to be very pleased. This is a review. Your mileage is going to vary. I'm sure some people out there are going to be like, man, 10 out of 10. And I really wouldn't argue with them. But for me, 7.5 out of 10 certainly do give it a strong recommendation, but just not as high as the starter set. All right, that is it for this time out. If you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, ding that bell. It'll not only let you know when I upload videos such as this review, it'll also inform you when my live stream, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, airs Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday evenings right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. And of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more that you won't find on the YouTube channel. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Thank you very kindly for taking time out to watch this video. Enjoy the holidays. And of course, here's hoping each and every one of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming. Your gang. Oh, hey, you're still here. That's okay. You don't have to leave just yet. In fact, why don't you subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel right here, or take a peek at the latest live stream, or even find out what YouTube recommends you check out from the channel. And of course, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thanks again for watching.